What is up, Entree fam? Welcome back to the channel with me, your host, Diana Gladney, and today we're going to be talking about the leaked video specs, only the video. We're not going into any details for the photo side, but Canon has released, well, not, they didn't mean to, but Canon Australia, to my understanding, has accidentally released the specs for the Canon M6 and the Canon 90D. So on this live stream, I have pulled the videos. I don't know if those are still out there on the internet. I'll link those after the stream down in the description below. You can check those out. But it was Canon Rumors who was able to pick up when the Canon M6 and 90D went live accidentally. They released the brochures. They released all kinds of stuff. So since I mostly have, and I want to be able to show the video for what I pulled for the M6, in case it's still not out there. The 90D, I'm not sure what's up with that one, but I'll see what I can do about that one. But otherwise, they've released, whatever. They released and leaked accidentally those two cameras. And so, of course, me caring about video, I want to be able to go over those specific details, specifically for those cameras, because as you guys know, I have my Canon M50, which I love, you know, Viltrox speed booster and all that great stuff, and I had the previous Canon M6 as well. I've had several cameras by different manufacturers and stuff like that, and Canon just seems to be the company that I always seem at some point to go back to or whatever, and a lot of you guys are here because you love those cameras. So I don't want to be too long before you, but I do want to have a little fun and look through some of these leak specs. Apparently on August the 26th, I believe, or either the 29th or something like that. I think it's the 26th. Canon's supposed to be officially announcing these cameras because, again, it was released on accident. And then Sony is supposed to be releasing some new cameras as well, an A6200 and an A6700. So something that's going to be a little bit below the A6400 and 6300 as far as specs and stuff like that, but a more modern camera. I don't know what they're doing. And then the A6700, which has been rumored to be the A7000. So we'll maybe talk about that a little bit later as well. But other than that, I do want to, well, first thing, let's jump into the video that they have, and hopefully you guys can hear it okay on your end. I believe you should be able to hear it here. If not, then it's not. It's just music back of it or whatever. So I do want to go through, play that real quick for the Canon M6 release. So let's get to it. Not too bad at all. So I do want to go back through and let's scrub through this and slow this down a little bit here. So the design right here, just because I've owned the Canon M6 before, so this has this, just looking at the stuff on the screen, Digic 8 processor, which is currently what we have in the Canon M50. Then we have a 32.5 megapixel sensor, so a bigger sensor, so that's always cool, 14 frames per second. eye detection autofocus, which hasn't always been that great, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, which we can expect. So it's saying it does have some 4K video, but we'll go through as we start to scrub through some of those different things and all that good stuff. Try to keep myself out of the way. But so let's scrub through. Again, the sensor and all that stuff, it does not have any in-body image stabilization, which a lot of people like and look forward to a lot of times. But, you know, it is what it is, I guess, when you're talking about Canon. They just haven't done it yet. They have not released a camera yet. I think they're probably going to do it with their higher-end camera, where they actually have... okay, cool. I just want to make sure I'm actually... live. So all right, so good. All right, so you know, they just haven't done it yet. I think they'll do it with their higher end cameras moving forward, but I don't think we can expect that in any sub $1,000 cameras. So you know, a nice sensor, 32 megapixels, whatever, that's fine. High burst speed, 14 frames per second high speed. I don't know if that's going to be in like where it's just like individually with, you know, single shot, or if that's in the high frame rate or whatever the issue is. So, of course, we are going to have Canon standard dual pixel autofocus with the regular 1080p video. And we'll get into that as we hop over to Canon Rumors on their spec sheet. So it is going to have 4K video. It's not known yet if that is going to be 4K with autofocus. Are we going to be able to keep dual pixel autofocus? They have a couple different versions of autofocus, period, with Canon's camera. You have the hybrid, you have, which is like what you saw in the M3, the T5i and stuff like that. Some contrast, some phase. It's like pre-phase detection autofocus or whatever. And it's okay. It will lose you from time to time, but it's okay. It's like somewhat reliable. It's like a 75% reliability, maybe 80%. But so you have that, and then they have the contrast detection autofocus, which is what you see in Panasonic cameras. It's really not all that great for video, if that's what you're going to be doing. And then you have Canon's dual pixel autofocus, which everybody knows and loves, that they use, which is pretty fast and it's okay. And so you have that. So we are seeing the record button. I think it used to be up here on the M6. I'm not exactly sure. On the M50, they went ahead and put it up on the front there. So we are seeing the slightly different body design because it wasn't like this before. So you have where you had a manual focus and autofocus switch on the back. So I guess that's fine. The record button is on the back as well. You do have the spin dial, which is not present on the M6, not M6, but the M50, but that was on the M3 as well as the M6. So that's okay. You do hit it sometimes, but whatever. So that's that design. Still going to be looking at the one card slot, which is, again, it's not for a camera this size, it's not a terrible thing. So the battery door and all that stuff is still the same. Look on the front here. This is what I always would program, because you are able to program this particular button to whatever you want it to be. So I usually would program that one for video, so that basically what they wind up doing with the M50, putting it on the front, it just makes sense, and then you can adjust the shutter. So I'm not seeing the exposure compensation dial that they have here, but this may be a customizable one, or whatever the case is. Still the regular 15 to 45 millimeter kit lens, and then your custom 1 and 2 function buttons, which I really do like. You actually get a little bit more flexibility and stuff like that on the Canon M6 than you do on the Canon M50. So the M6 does give you the ability. So for example, I shoot in here a lot, and so if I'm constantly in here, and let's say I always would do videos, let's say outside of work or something, I could adjust for that. Or if I have one that's like 24 or 30 frames per second, I could do that one and then put the other one in like slow motion. So the custom dials, the C1, C2, that's really cool. And then I know on the other one, on the regular M6 Mark 1, just the regular one, you could, or you used to be able to do like aperture priority and all that stuff. So I mean, I like the design of this one. It's okay. So I mean, we literally did just watch through the movie. I just want to scrub through some of these details just to be able to slow it down and all that good stuff. So again, nothing that's not new. Obviously, you're not going to get that on the kit lens, but probably one of their prime lenses. It's possible. You just need to be able to carry different lenses. So this is something that is new from the other M6. Again, I had the original M6, so it was a nice camera. I just wanted some more. So that's cool. I said, I don't like the record button down there, this dial or function button or whatever. I'm curious to see what that's going to be like as far as, you know, what, when you press that, do you, like, what is it? Is it a programmable button? I'm sure the wheel is programmable. And so I do like being able to have the two wheels on there versus what you have on the M50, which is fine. Again, it's just like it gives you a little bit more flexibility and that kind of stuff. So again, they're kind of vague. It's nice for what they do show in this video, which again, if you want to watch it again, just go back to the beginning of the stream where we watched through this video. But like they're showing you certain things, but they aren't getting into full details, which we'll break down once we get into the spec sheet on Canon Rumors that's, you know, right now. So yes, you get the eye autofocus or whatever. It's not fantastic, honestly, and it's pretty slow. So it's just not my cup of tea. Is it there? Sure. Are they probably improving it? Sure. I don't think we're going to see a whole bunch in that. It says optimal exposure even in dark scenes. Well, one, because of the blurry background, we know that's not the kit lens. And so again, with the speed booster, with whatever, we know we can get some decent stuff on there. I'm just not like, I'm not liking some of the things I'm seeing, and I'm not trying to like downplay it, but it's just like, you have to pay attention to kind of what you're looking at. So it's in ISO 100 f1.4 one-shot autofocus. So it's like, again, you know, there is no kit lens that has an f1.4 on the Canon. So of course, the better the glass that you have, the better that you're going to get as far as on the camera. So you guys, you know, see me do a ton of videos with the Canon M50. And yes, if you add better glass, you definitely will be able to get better quality. So again, this is kind of like, I'm not really feeling it. I don't, you know, just not trying to pick it apart, but I'm just saying. So they are saying that we get 120 frames per second in this camera in full HD, which is 1080p. Whether or not you will have sound is not known. Whether or not you will have autofocus is not known. Obviously, the promo video is always just going to show the best of what the camera potentially can do with it, you know, being cleaned up a little bit. But that's just, again, so it's saying it's 1080p, 120 frames per second in the camera. So that's possible. Raw burst mode, that's getting into photo stuff. And as you guys know, I really don't care about that. But it's fine. It's something fun. Again, this raw burst mode, again, they have this, everything that I'm saying, that I saw in the video that we just watched here, everything kind of has like an asterisk to it. It's like, yeah, you have this, but it's like saying the M50 has 4K video. Yeah, it has it, but it zooms in a lot and it's cropped in a lot. You know, it's has, you know, so all these asterisks, I'm just curious to see what this will look like actually in, you know, real regular use. It says raw burst mode shooting will be cropped. Shooting with the electronic shutter. So again, so they're saying it's a crop on that, which is fine, whatever. I'm not too focused on the photo stuff, but it's fun to be able to have some of this stuff in there. It is saying you have an autofocus start button and a focus mode. Move myself out the way. Focus mode switch. Okay. No qualms there. A dial function button. We already have a traditional dial here. Again, my favorite things about the M6 that I really love. You do have the aperture priority in video, I believe. I don't know if they keep that in this camera, which you don't have in the M50, which a lot of creators like to use, so you can keep a blurry background and the camera automatically fixes everything else. And I like the custom 1 and 2 dials on there. I don't know really what to use that for. Just another function button is fine. Those are always helpful. It does not have an electronic viewfinder on there, so there's only a couple of these mirrorless cameras that Canon has made, period, from the EOS M up to the M50 and now the M6 Mark II that's probably going to come out. I think they said it's going to officially be announced this Monday. But it's not a big deal to not have the EVF because the screens are fine. You can see it in the daytime. It's okay. But this is an option if you absolutely wanted it, so no big deal. Touch to drag autofocus, we already have that on the M50. I used that on my last video, well, I can't say even last, but second to the last video shoot to focus in on hair, so you can touch the screen and have it up to your eye, which is really fun. And then, of course, the app is amazing. I have no qualms with the app. And then that's the video for that one. I couldn't get the video to play right for the 90D for whatever reason. So that's a thing. I do want to head over to Canon Rumors right now so we can take a look at these specific specs and do a quick rundown. Actually, that's the wrong tab. Do a quick rundown for this one. So a lot of this we already saw, so I don't want to go over it. It is saying it has 143 autofocusing points, which I believe the M50 has like 90 something. It kind of doesn't matter to the point that you have the dual pixel autofocus. That just works, and that's fine. It's just a matter of what actually is going to have dual pixel autofocus in video and what actually isn't. And so my personal point of this whole video is to go over the video stuff, not the photo stuff. So I'm not really too concerned about the photo stuff. They usually do a good job on that. Alrighty, let's scroll down because it's a little bit further down. I do believe. Okay, so all the standard stuff is still there of what you would see in any Canon camera traditionally. Still not there. Here we go. Alrighty. So we are now getting into the video specs. Simultaneous recording. Yeah. Video specs. No, that's still photo. Here we go. So MP4 videos is what we typically see and have in cameras and whatnot. So just a regular MP4. So in 4K, it is not a true 4K. I don't know what this is. 2840 by 2160, that's not what 4K video is, the true dimensions of it. So I don't really know what they're doing with that. It just is very weird, to be completely honest with you. So we are, in the United States, that's the NTSC. That's what we use. You don't even have to really worry about this stuff. It just is already set. So for us in America, it's 30 frames per second in 4K only. So that's the only thing that you have. Whether or not we have dual pixel autofocus in there, I doubt it. Whether or not there is, whether it's going to be contrast or dual pixel or whatever, I just doubt that they're going to get a whole lot. And the fact that this is not even the full 4K video is just really odd. So you have a weird 4K going on there. If you are in other countries and stuff like that, use that PAL setting, you will be able to get 25, which is for us in America, like the 24 frames per second. So you'll get that in 4K if you're overseas. So full HD, regular 1080p video, we're only getting 30 frames per second. 24 frames per second does not exist in this camera if you are over here in America at all. Not even 60p. It's not even, I'm guessing that this spec sheet maybe is missing some stuff because we saw in the video that it was saying that you get 1080p, 120 frames per second. So I really wonder if this is missing something. And I'm going to do a quick search on here in just a second and probably answer any questions that you guys have and see what I can find again for the 90D. But just want to go through all these video specs real quick. So it says it at least has 120 frames per second. So I'm not seeing 24 though. Like that's one thing that's a given, just like the 30 frames per second. It's like, so what's the big deal? I don't get that. 720p kind of doesn't matter, but that's the only place where we're seeing 60 frames per second there. So that's really weird. So it's saying in the HDR or that high dynamic range mode or whatever, it's a 30 frames per second there. And for whatever reason, this camera still has the 30-minute recording limit for whatever reason. There is no rhyme or reason as to why that is. It's just still a 30-minute recording limit on this camera at a max 4 gigabytes file size. That means when you're recording, I think it's something like 8 or 9 and then maybe 10 or 12 minutes, you'll get about a 4 gigabyte file size in 1080p. And it'll break those files up every time the memory card is hitting 4 gigabytes. It's just going to start a whole new file. You'll never see it. The camera will probably not alert you or anything like that. You're just going to see that be the thing on that. So really disheartened about these specs for the video, and I think that what Canon has done here is really messed up. It's pretty jacked up. I don't like the fact that it is missing stuff for no reason. 1080p, 24 frames per second. There is no reason. Like, that's not like asking for 240 frames per second where you see like the really crazy slow motion stuff. Nobody's asking for that. Well, people are asking for it, but nobody's saying like that has to be the standard. Giving people the option. Most of you guys, maybe you're only going to do 30 frames per second, and that's fine. But here's the thing. If it's going to be where you're primarily pushing people towards 30 frames per second, like, that's one, I get it, but at the same time I don't, because it's taking away the ability to have options. And that's the biggest thing. That's the same thing I keep going back to when I talk about TVs and with any other stuff with cameras. If you're going to be having cameras come out, stop doing this crippling stuff where you take stuff out and say, well, you only get that, and then people are having to make decisions on whether or not they want that camera or they have to get something else. Or all the lenses now that you bought and all the batteries and all this stuff that you've invested money in, I don't care how much the camera costs, now that's an investment that's kind of like going in the trash because you couldn't, get, you just, like, you keep having to play this, like, do I need this, that, and then all that stuff becomes trash because maybe you need to switch and get something different. So I think it's kind of crazy. I'm gonna see if I can find this brochure that leaked out as well. And then the Canon 90D did get, it was rumors for that being released as well. So I'm gonna pull that from the Canon rumor site real quick. But I just think it's like, it's kind of ridiculous, honestly, when you think about it, because it's no point to it. It's no point to it. There's no rhyme or reason as to do this on these cameras. So again, like I said, that's the video for it. And for those of you that did not see it, I guess I could run the video back again. That'll give me a second to, because I am using a battery today instead of hooking in via power. I could swap it in, but yeah, let's go roll through the 90D real quick, and then we will answer any questions that you guys may have on that. And so this is on canonrumors.com if you want to check that out. Here we go. Okay, so 90D here, again, it's on canonrumors.com. They have their specs leaked as well. So same type sensor and all of that stuff. And then you have, let's just scroll down, because a lot of it is kind of the same thing. And again, for video, the photo stuff, you're pretty much okay. Like, you're okay with that stuff. They don't do a whole lot of taking stuff out for that. When we come down to here to see what kind of video stuff they have going on for the 90D, it does have a headphone jack. So like the 80D, it has a headphone jack in there with the microphone jack as well. So that's cool. They are saying that the regular 4K video size, like I said, I don't know what that is in the M6 Mark II, but that's not a regular 4K video file. So they're saying that this one is here. It's uncropped, but it's cropped at 30 frames per second. So I guess maybe they are putting 24 frames per second in there, but it is what it is. You get 1080p, 120 frames per second, and I'm going to have to switch my battery out in just a second, so we probably will play that video again for you guys that haven't seen it yet. And then 720p 60, which don't matter. And then this HDR and 1080p 30 frames per second. Again, a 30-minute recording limit for whatever reason, and still getting a max file size of 4 gigabytes. I absolutely hate that, because a video like this, where I've been going for a few minutes, or I'm doing an interview, I'm stuck because I have to, go find all these individual files versus, like, this is part 1 of the interview. This is part 2 if I'm doing it in 30-minute segments. And that really just makes for unnecessary, just nonsense when you're talking about your video stuff. So I don't know. You guys let me know what you think as far as that concerned. I'm going to switch out my battery, but we're going to play the M6 video real quick. So, and I'll cut this out for, maybe, I don't know. I'll leave it in, but we'll see. So let's go over to this M6 video, and that'll give me a minute to swap batteries on this. So let's Alrighty, so that's that one. I was able to find, so I can't play it like I did on this one. Find where I downloaded it. I don't know why it's not playing though. I'll see if I can do it real quick. Yeah, it's not. So when I downloaded it, it didn't play right, but Canon Rumor still has it. So we'll hop over there and we can watch that video. If you guys want to see like the specs and same stuff like they just did for the M6 there. So let's swap over. All right, so hopefully you can hear it. All right. DSLR is not a mirrorless camera, unfortunately. Could be the same sensor as the M6. Pretty sure it is. Same sad eye detection autofocus. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. So just to run back through this real quick, I mean, it's not, it looks like it's going to be the same sensor as the M6. It looks like I said, the 4K is going to be uncropped. It says like it's like half and half, but again, like you see all these asterisks and stuff at the bottom of the video, and so it's just like I don't really trust that they're going to be doing a whole lot of great, wonderful things with it. I don't think this camera is going to be for video, honestly. I think if you want to use it for video, it'll be fine, but I don't think it'll be quote unquote for video. So again, 1080p, 120 frames per second in there. Whether or not you'll have audio, whether or not you will have, you know, any stuff you really need, I don't know. Crop / uncropped 30 frames per second. I don't get this at all. It's just really weird. I don't think I was listening to Peter Gregg earlier, who's another creator on YouTube, and I don't think according to him, I do not believe that this camera will have the all-eye, which is like the better codec or whatever in video. I don't think this one will have it like the 80D had as well. So it's a lot of disappointing things to me from a video perspective. You know, taking the 4K and making it weird in the M6. So and then the thing too, and I'll end on this. And if you guys have any questions, you can always drop those in the thingy baba. But I think for me, for video, the Canon cameras will do what Canon cameras do, which is typically work, minus the release of this, what was it, the G7X Mark III, to where just indoors, outdoors, regular, average, everyday use of what you're supposed to be able to do with that camera, it's been overheating like crazy. I don't care what video I watch or what person is using it or whatever. It's one thing to take a camera, any camera, outdoors, and you set it on the concrete in 90, 100 degree weather, and the camera overheats. You would overheat. Like, seriously. So that's one thing. But and especially like direct sunlight, come on, it's a black camera. It's, like, so that stuff doesn't make sense to me. But just regular, average, everyday use for what you would be these quick 4 to 5 minute increment clips of you doing something, or for what it takes to do a vlog. It's not simultaneous recording, like consistently nonstop all day long. Nobody does that. It's like clips. You're recording in clips, and then you compose your story later. So for that camera, as small as it is, to have any overheating issues whatsoever is really weird to me, because Canon has never had overheating issues. Now we look at this M6 that's going to have this, if you look at the video specs, it's going to have this weird 4K. So I don't know what this is. Like, I don't. And then also looking at the specs for the 90D, where they were also saying how that is not going to be a true 4K. It's going to be upsampled. So if you scroll back through the video and you see all those asterisks and stuff like that, it's not going to be a true 4K. It's going to be a 1080p upscaled to 4K video, which essentially means if you take and you make a 4K video, or you make a 4K timeline like in the editing software, you do a 1080p 24 frames per second video in the camera. You take that file out of the camera. When you go to edit, you make the editing software, you make it think it's going to be a 4K video. It will stretch it out to fill and make it look like it would be a 4K video, and you can upload it. That's essentially all the 90D is going to be doing. I don't know if that's going to be the same thing in the M6, because again, this is a really weird, I don't even know what this is, 2840 by 2160. I really don't. No 24 frames per second. Again, I think the spec sheet could be off. Could be. I don't think it will be. I think it could be off as far as the 120 frames per second not being in there, because the video showed it, and that was leaked directly from Canon Australia. But I think they're doing a lot of weird stuff for no reason. 30-minute recording limit as well, and these max file sizes of 4 gigabytes. There's no reason for this at all. No reason whatsoever. Switch over to the 90D. They do have the 120 frames per second, but the most that you're going to get in this 4K video is 30 frames per second. So I think this is weird. Very, very weird. Like, even just looking through any of this other stuff, kind of even don't even matter at this point. It's bizarre. So let me jump over to a quick question that we got here. So the review suite, welcome to the channel. Glad that you are here. So you are asking, or you're saying no 4K 60 frames per second on the 90D. There is no Canon camera currently out, supposed to be released. None of that. That's got 4K 60. So no. So the 4K that's going to be in this 90D is going to be only up to 30 frames per second that we know of. There's not even going to be 24 frames per second there. There's not going to be just no 4K 60 at all, unfortunately. Just looking back over here, at least they're saying it's going to be the full thing, but according to the brochures and stuff that was leaked and stuff like that, it's going to be upsampled 4K video. So it's really, honestly, is a disappointment. Again, the 90D also has a 30-minute recording limit, and the max max file size is going to be 4 gigabytes. So after a few minutes of recording, let's say you hit 8 or 9 minutes, it's going to, once it gets over 4 gigabytes, a new file is automatically going to be created on the camera, and there's nothing that you can do about it to change that. So dream camera or disappointment? A resounding disappointment on both sides. Will people get the camera, and will people want it? Of course, absolutely. Everybody loves, for the most part, Canon cameras to a certain extent. I know I've talked about the M50 at length, ad nauseum. I've done tutorials on it and all kinds of stuff. If you watch any, like the recent vlog episode that I did, where I was sharing just like I broke it. It still records. It's just like if I touched it, it just starts recording. It's fine for live streaming, but otherwise it's shot. So we got to send it off to the hospital. But you will get more bang for your buck probably when you're coming to the M6 and and the 90D if you don't really care about that stuff. My biggest concern right now, are these cameras going to have overheating issues? Because right now, that point and shoot camera, the G7X Mark III, has overheating issues, and that's a problem. Canon has never, ever had overheating problems. So, like, that's weird to say that that's something to look, that potentially could be a problem. And my last point that I'll talk about here is that people talk about it needs a firmware update. This needs a firmware update. Canon is not in the business of doing firmware updates. They are not that company. If it was Fuji, I would have no problems buying a camera if it maybe had some stuff that was wrong with it at launch. And then, it's like, make some changes, and then it's like, okay. Because even their older cameras that otherwise manufacturers kind of forget about, Fuji is one of those companies that they will still, if they are able to add it to it, they will add it there. So it still gets stuff added to it. At the end of the day, I think that, honestly, I'm just kind of like, I'm baffled with Canon. I'm sick of Canon, but I love Canon at the same time. Would I recommend these cameras? If it don't have overheating, and then one of the things I didn't see is like where it talks about live streaming. I'm curious if it's going to have a clean HDMI out. So you don't need to use specifically, like I use Ecamm Live. I've been using Ecamm Live for this stream and many other streams. Just about all my streams are using Ecamm Live. I don't think, well, maybe it could. I was about to say I don't think it would, but I think they might. Since the G7X Mark III has clean HDMI out, I think these cameras may have, at least the M6 should have clean HDMI out, because that's something they're starting to add in. But again, they're taking a lot of stuff out. If you wanted to do, 60 frames per second streaming in 1080p, that doesn't look like it's going to be there. And then this other piece, I was able to find the brochure. And again, I'll drop these links in the description afterwards. And so these brochures got leaked. It's on Scribd or whatever. You probably can see the URL or whatever, but I don't know, the little one at least popped up. So far as I could tell, again, I didn't see anything in this brochure that suggested that we're missing something. Like I'm not finding where there's like hope. So I don't get it. I just don't get it. So 4K 30 is the best you're gonna get. Full HD, 120 frames per second shooting. Whether or not you have audio, you guys can look through this and have a field day with it if you so choose. Again, I'll drop those links, but I think it's very disappointing, disheartening to, like, I think the biggest thing, everybody wants to see Canon win, of course. Everybody wants that camera. The camera that's right for them, and then Canon's just not making it. So I'm not worried. So honestly, I'm just not worried about it. It's like at this point, I don't think Canon's going to be, they'll drop probably the Canon EOS R big camera that's like $3,000 to $4,000. Probably like $3,500 or $4,000 camera that's like super everything and has all this great stuff. I'm just not at a place that I want to spend that kind of money on a camera. $1,000, $1,500 to $1,000 is like the max for me, because they should have just about everything. You got Panasonic dropping stuff all the time. Fuji has amazing cameras under $1,500. I think that's probably like the content creator, entrepreneurs level, unless you need something more, than sure. But I think $1,500 for sure, $2,000 should be the mark. And I think the pricing on this camera, which we haven't heard for any of them, for sure they're probably going to hit for at least $1,000. I think the M50 dropped for $899. I think we're at least looking at $1,200 or, probably $1,000, right at $1,000, if not a little more, because you got to think like the Canon RP is out, and that kind of is like another crippled camera, just a full frame mirrorless one. But it's just weird. It's very, very weird. But I'm not too worried about it, because I am now the proud owner of a Sony a6400 that is doing amazing things in my life right now, which I'm really excited to see what happens with, everything that Sony is doing, because they supposed to drop the Sony A6200, which is like, I don't know, maybe an M50 competitor at some point, and then the A6700. But I'm not trying to get a new camera. This one is an amazing gift to me, so I'm excited about learning and comparing between the A6400 and the M50 in just the different ways that I like to use them, like for live streaming and all kinds of stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video, the live stream. If you have any questions, comments, you can drop those down below. Definitely keep the conversation going down in the comments, because it's always fun to do these like rumor videos. And then of course, with Monday, we'll see what happens. So with that, guys, live with passion, and I will see you in the next video.